welcome to the latest edition of the Bison video blog, Sans the Flowers. They died on me, I guess.
Never going to get no more flowers because I've been threatened to lose my man card over that.
With Jeff Kolpak, I'm Dom Izzo. Here we are. We're nearing the end of February. The madness of March is almost here. And for the Bison men's basketball team, well, the next two games will tell the story basically of their season. They wrap up the year, Jeff, at home with IUPUI and Western Illinois, two teams they split with way back when in early December to start the conference season. Now they put a tail end on it here at the BSA. They come in tied for third right now with Oakland. They have the tiebreaker on the Grizz since they swept them this season. But how important is it to hold down that 3 seed to get it for Sioux Falls?
Yeah, I don't think it's a hugely must-win thing, but what I'm looking for in this team is the way it played in the second half in the bracket buster game against Western Michigan, which was fabulous. We've seen that before out of this team, and then it'll go in a little funky funk on offense once in a while. When Lawrence Alexander is playing fast and he's playing dynamic the way he did in the second half, they're tough. I mean, they'll be tough to beat in the conference. Now, whether they can do that against, say, Dominic Morrison of Oral Roberts, or again the Walters, if they can hold them down South Dakota State, or even Oakland's going to be pretty good. They've been there before. That remains to be seen. But when that team is functioning well, I'm talking about NDSU, they may be tough.
I want to go back to something you said there about LA getting up and down the floor, which when he goes, I think the Bison go, I think is the best way to put it. Also, when Marshall Bjorklund is involved on offense, they seem to be really, really good in those particular games. He gets 6 or more shots a game. The Bison have a good chance of winning the game. It's those games where he has it. I go back to the South Dakota State game last week, the game that they struggled against Oral Roberts. He was taken out of that. If Marshall gets involved in it, the Bison have a good chance to win.
Those two factors, and Dylan Hale on defense. I think when he's involved and focused and into the game and not making stupid passes and doing the job defensively as he's capable of, there again, that's another factor. And then we saw that again against Western Michigan, and that hasn't been the case all season.
You mentioned before we started taping with the IUPUI game coming up on Thursday, this will be the 4th potential NBA prospect the Bison will play this season. We saw Dominique Morrison from Oral Roberts, Nate Walters obviously getting plenty of talk from South Dakota State, Reggie Hamilton in Oakland. Here comes Alex Young, which a couple years ago had an unbelievable dunk for IUPUI. Obviously the Jaguars have a litany of guys who went to the NBA. When you look at George Hill, and just the conversation begins and ends there. And here's another guy, Jeff, who already was one of the preseason players of the conference. Just another guy the Bison are going to have to find a way to stop on Thursday.
I talked to Todd Howard, the IUPUI coach. He's been in the league a while as an assistant before taking over the head job today. And he's never before seen a league like this with this many NBA prospects. You have those 4, and I think Reggie Hamilton is a dynamic player too. But Alex Young is every bit as talented. Some NBA scouts are looking at him as maybe a guard coming off the bench. He's 6'6", and he's been around. How IUPUI got him and he didn't go to a major is beyond me.
Same thing with George Hill. That's the other mystifying thing about it.
I mean, all state, all academic, and he had it all coming out of Indianapolis. I'm not sure what the Dukes of the world didn't see.
That's the luxury I think that IUPUI can have that other schools don't, especially in the Summit League, where some of those guys will go to Indiana. Now they'll go to Butler, the success that they've had, and then hey, we're right in Indianapolis. We're right next to the NCAA headquarters, and here you go. We can give you a Division I chance and a chance to be a true superstar at IUPUI. I saw Chad Ford on ESPN.com has him as a late bubble round guy, which George Hill obviously went in the second round at IUPUI. So
there's probably 80 guys that are late bubble guys.
That's right.
Everybody's a late bubble guy.
We can talk about that.
You're a late bubble guy.
I was once, yes, for broadcasting school. I talked about this on the radio show. I'll mention it real brief before we move on. As we get near Selection Sunday, and the chances now after what we saw South Dakota State and Oral Roberts do on the bracket buster, both won at home, both won on TV. If SDSU and Oral Roberts meet in that Summit League Championship game 2 weeks from tonight, which may happen, and the Jacks win, which will be a home game for them in Sioux Falls, can you see the committee saying, we can give Oral Roberts an at-large bid with 29 wins, despite not winning the Summit League?
I'll answer that in 2 ways. First of all, should the Summit deserve? Yes, absolutely. They were 11, as high as 11 in the RPI earlier this year, now around 15, 16. They should get another team in. Now, reality tells me that the reputation of the Summit is not the best, and I would venture to say when it's all done and figured out in the committee room that they will not.
That'd be disappointing.
It would be.
But if and I mentioned this last night, if there's any year that this league's going to get 2, it's going to be this year. Because South Dakota State, if they run the table in the tournament, they'll have 26, 27 wins. Oral Roberts will have 29. And let's say the Bison win out and win a game in Sioux Falls, they get to 20. Not many leagues in America, especially mid-major, have 3 20-plus win teams.
I said they deserve it. They
That'd be
absolutely
tough.
deserve it, but I just don't think they're gonna get it.
We have the latest Bison team shock and national power over the weekend. Todd Brown's baseball team beats 5th-ranked Arizona on the road in Tucson to open up the 2012 season. Another monumental win for the Bison program on a whole, Jeff, and the biggest win ever for the baseball team.
How that program has come along since even
doubt.
the 80s when they had some really good prospects. But, yeah, that's a big win. You know, it joined the list. You have volleyball had some big wins and made the NCAA tournament. Softball won a regional. Basketball beat a couple ranked teams. And this ranks right up there. Baseball, you get a good pitching performance, you can beat almost anybody, and that maybe sets it apart from basketball. I still think basketball beating Wisconsin is the all-time upset.
When you look at what baseball can do once Oral Roberts leaves, and we talked a lot about when the Golden Eagles leave, but Oral Roberts has won 14 straight baseball titles. When they leave next year, that leaves the door wide open for a really young Bison baseball team to threaten to make the NCAA tournament.
But if you can beat Arizona, I think you can beat Oral Roberts on the right day.
That's the thing, though. No one's been seen to done that, though.
It's been about
in the last 14 years. We mentioned a few weeks ago around signing day about Devion Dinwiddie. That became official from the school over the weekend. The running back out of Hutchinson, Kansas, who played last year at Community College. He's the brother of Deshaun Dinwiddie, Bison freshman linebacker who played sparingly this past season. Gives NDSU a 4th running back officially on the depth chart, not knowing what John Crockett's status is for 2012. Not a huge guy, but really fast. Had a letter of intent to go to Kansas State, so you can tell he's got some talent.
Great athlete, and great athletes, absolutely, you take them. I think NDSU may be looking for the Mike Seegers kind of guy, too, on special teams. Yeah. They need somebody who's really fast and quick and maybe can do something on the outside on the special teams. And interested to see his running back ability. I mean, he's a winner. He led Hutchinson, he and his brother, to 4 state titles in high school. That's 4.
Yeah,
so
pretty
that's
good.
pretty good.
I'll ask you this. You mentioned about the special teams replacement. Do you envision a time where he's the returner and Ryan Smith, who now is probably going to take on more wide receiver responsibilities, moves out of that role, and they put Dinwiddie back there or somebody back there?
Way too early to tell. I need to see him in fall practice when you have about 8 guys, about 240, bearing down on you in practice.
As we record this, still the specter of what that 11th football game, it seems like we've done this now for about 4 weeks, and still the rumors are out there about who NDSU can play. And I will be honest, the list of FCS teams is shrinking. Because teams are finishing up their schedule. There's still 10 to 15 teams will either September 15th or the 22nd open. But I wanted to take just this time, because we have it here on the blog, and that's what the greatness about it, to discuss it, about the 2 teams, at least in the Missouri Valley, that have played 2 FBS teams either recently or coming up. South Dakota did it this past year. They played Air Force in 1 game, and also they played Wisconsin. Now, Northern Iowa will play Wisconsin and Iowa coming up this season. And I think those 2 schools, Jeff, are in a way different boat than the Bison are. Both of those schools needed the cash. Those were why they played those games, why you and I will play those games next season.
There's no way. We mentioned this on the blog before. It's a formula. You need to go 2-1 in your 3 non-conference games to really have a leg up and a head start to get into the playoffs. You can't go 1-2, and don't just because you're 4-3 in FBS games and you won a national title. I think there's an invulnerable feeling out there. This team's going to waltz into Colorado State and just power all over them. Not the case. It was a special year this year. Everything came together. Next year it may not be.
Right, exactly. That's a good point. And also, I think it lends to the fact that you look at what the schedule could possibly be. That you go at Colorado State, let's say at Florida State or whoever, then Northern Iowa. And then a Youngstown State team, that is a gauntlet right there that no one should, not even the top FBS teams would want to play that.
Missouri Valley's tough enough.
No doubt.
It's a physical conference. It's hard to get through it injury-free. And another trick, too, is to get as far as you can, as healthy as you can.
Right.
And playing 2 FBS teams is really not the way to do that.
No, and here's the thing. The Bison, for the most part, were relatively injury-free in 2011. That wasn't the case in 2010. We could see the difference when they got their guys back, how much that helped in the 2010 playoff run. 2011 was almost injury-free for the most part. I'll ask you this before we go. If it looks like it's not a when or an if, but when the FCS field expands to 24, do you think more teams then will go the 2 FBS game route just because, hey, we've got a little bit of leeway that maybe 7 wins can get us an at-large berth into the tournament?
Yeah, but I doubt it. I don't think you'd use that as motivation because 2 of those, I believe, will be automatic bursts.
That's
correct?
right.
With
Yep.
the
2
Patriot
and the Pioneer.
The Pioneer.
Yeah.
So
There'll be
just
2 more at-large
2
bursts.
more. That's just not enough to me to say, okay, hey, let's do an FBS because there's 2 more spots. Not enough.
The contrast, to put a counterpoint to our argument, Sam Houston State, the national runner-up, will play Texas A&M and Baylor this season, but they also will only play 4 home games.
And 3, actually, right, at their stadium?
Correct, because one of them will actually be a neutral site in Houston at Reliance Stadium. So there's
Good
the
luck on tailgating.
That's the counterpart to that. So that'll wrap up this edition of the Bison Video Blog. Last Summit League home games for the men and the women. We're back next week to recap that and get you ready for the Summit League tournament.